The next page in our portfolio is the education plan page. And this page is really all about you demonstrating or displaying your intentions for after high school. So there's three different sections to this page. The first one is, when you first land on the page, a logo, and then something that, like a paragraph or two, that essentially states what you're going to do at the school or institution that you're going to go to after high school. So whether that's the service, college, a 4-year college, a 2-year university, a technical school, a 1-year certificate program, whatever it might be, we'd like to see, a nice large logo that when you land on this page, it's pretty clear as to what's happening here. And then below that, you can just write, 1 to 2 sentences at the most, whatever you feel good about in terms of describing what you're going to do, why you chose Oregon State, or why you chose whatever you're going to do. I'm just using Oregon State as an example because that's how I built this page. That basically tells your users, here's what's happening, here's where I'm going, and what I hope to accomplish when I get there. And then following that little intro piece is the infographic that we created earlier in the year for looking at colleges. And so that's just an easy image that gets inserted. This is a student example that we use, and this student's example has like a white square up in here in the top, so that's why we have this kind of looks like the content just kind of flows right into that rather than a clear division. But that is part of the image right there, and that's why the logos kind of repeat themselves. So scrolling down, you see all the different infographic type stuff that we put in here, which looks really great. If we look at this in mobile view in a Galaxy S5, scrolled up, like that image resizes itself, so it's nicely displayed as a mobile version. And then so that will be the first section of this tutorial. We'll tackle that part of the section of the education plan. And then in the next tutorial, we'll tackle then the second section, which is all about scholarships, paying for school, work study, grants, things like that, that are essentially free money. Well, except for work study, you have to work for it, but money that you don't have to pay back later, as in like a student loan. So these things will help you pay for school. So we start off with a Creator Foundation, presidential scholarship, which is available at most universities depending upon your GPA and your SAT scores, work study type things. These are just examples. There are other scholarships that your school might offer, and we encourage you to find those scholarships. You don't have to be limited to just a presidential scholarship. If you know you're not going to be able to qualify for that, then I would look for other scholarship opportunities. Some schools offer diversity scholarships. Some schools offer specific, major scholarships. Like if you're going to major in business, or you're going to major in computer science or engineering, they all have, little smaller scholarships that aren't offered to the whole campus. They might be specific to who you are. One of the things that's not in here is OSAC. You might consider putting OSAC in here as a scholarship option. Down here in the bottom of this section, we also have what's called the Pell Grant. Some people qualify for the Pell Grant, not all, but that's another way also to pay for college. So these are the things that we want you to look into and display on your portfolio, because we think paying for college is one of those things that is stressful to people. And following that section, we rounded out with how most people, at least that I know of, pay for school, and that is by taking out student loans. I took out student loans, so I'm very well familiar with how this works. We have the 3 different types of federal loans that are available to students. We have the Stafford unsubsidized loans, the Parent Plus loans, which is your parents help you out with, and then the Stafford subsidized loans. Most students will have a combination of all 3, some just a combination of 2. It just all kind of depends. So each one of these sections here is a link to like what that program is all about. And each one of these sections below has like a short description of what that is, what a parent loan is, what a Stafford loan is, how much you can borrow, like the maximum amount you can borrow, what the interest rate is. So all the things that you need to know before you actually jump into that and take out a student loan. So those are the 3 sections that we will be doing. The tutorials will follow each one of those sections of this page. So let's get started with that first section of our intro. So I'm going to jump right in by tabbing over to Dreamweaver. And I have my site open here in my files panel. So then I'm going to open up my education plan page and locate the area where I want to put that. And I have those paragraph fillers that from when we first created our home page, we use that as filler. So now we're going to take that out. So delete that whole chunk of code out of there. And we need to start with our first main. So left caret main class main, and we need to add, although it completed it there for me, we need to add the secondary class up top so it positions this section below the header so it doesn't hide underneath it. So play spacebar right after main and then type in top and then right caret and then enter return, and I like to delete that back so it brings back that spacing, that tab over to the left. Move your cursor up and then tab in. Start off with a row. You probably are used to this by now. So div class row and then right caret and then enter return key a couple of times and then move your cursor up. We're going to start off by inserting that logo of the school that this particular portfolio showcases. So I'm going to tab in. And before we do that, I want to make sure that I've put this image in that class that we created called image container. So that way the image will resize according to the screen that it's in. So we're going to go div class and then image container. And then I'm going to go ahead and keep everything for this little image. I'm going to keep everything inline code. I'm not going to enter return key a bunch of times here. I'm just going to go ahead and keep it inline to make it a little bit easier to show, at least for me at this point. I'm going to go ahead and keep it inline rather than. Anyway, let's move on. Okay, so I want to make sure that when I put this image in, I also want to make it a link to the actual college that I'm going to or the place that I'm going to. So that way, if I have a user and they want to learn more about the place, they can easily go to that school or institution, wherever you end up deciding to go. So I'm going to do that by typing in an href. Don't forget the left caret in there. And then instead of obviously browsing for this is an outside website. So for Oregon State, this is just https://oregonstate.edu. So I'm just going to copy and paste that into the URL there that goes into the href, and then hit the spacebar. And I want this page to open up in a new window or a new tab. So I'm going to type in target and then select blank and then close that out with a right caret. Now I can insert my image in between that link. So I'm going to type in left caret img src and then browse for it. And then I have this already saved in my images, and this will be OSU. This is that image right there. So go ahead and click open there and then hit the spacebar right afterwards. So make sure you put in the alt tag so that way you are compliant with ADA. So infographic. So that way a screen reader can read your site. And then make sure you move your cursor at the end of that quotation mark after infographic and hit the / and right caret. If you accidentally get that / in before that quotation mark, you might see a little red indicator over here that something's not quite right with your code. So that'll take care of that first row right there with our image. So I'm going to locate that closing div tag of that row, place my cursor at the end of that closing div tag, and hit the enter return key. And then next I need to add another row. So div class row. enter return, enter return. Move your key up there, your cursor, and then tab in. And this is just a couple of paragraphs. So I'm just going to type in a left caret P and then grab some lorem ipsum filler text for you guys. You will want to write something original. And like I said earlier, all it has to really say is something about, to the effect that I plan to go to Oregon State University to study civil engineering. The reason why I chose Oregon State University is because, maybe something like that. Okay, so I just put in 2 paragraphs here, and part of the reason why I use 2 paragraphs, you are welcome to just use 1. Totally up to you on this. But the reason why I was going for that is because I wanted to make sure that in terms of what it looked like, I wanted it to, especially like in mobile view, 2 paragraphs, it might seem like it's a lot, like it's got quite a bit there. But when you look at it in a laptop view, it doesn't seem like it's as much. So like one little sentence there, it may not feel like you've got enough there in terms of a design aesthetic. Transition from that to your large image of your infographic. So your call on what you want to put in there. Really, what I'd like to see is state your intentions. What are you planning on doing with your education? What are you going for? What do you want to do with that? Why is this in here? And why is it important to you? Okay, so just that part. Think about that. Okay. Last but not least, we want to enter in that infographic. So I'm going to locate that closing div tag right after that row that we just put in our little paragraph about our intentions. Enter return key. Too many times. There we go. And then left caret div class row again. And right caret enter return. And then move your cursor up and then tab in. And because this is an image, we're going to do the same thing that we did just a few minutes ago with our logo. So div class image container, image contain, CNT, and then right caret. And we don't need to. We could add a link, and we should add a link to this infographic. So, for instance, if say someone wanted to look at this infographic by itself without being in your page, they could click on it and it would take them to a new tab or a new page with just the infographic if they want to look at it more in like a full screen mode or something like that. So same process, left caret href, enter return, but this time instead of copying and pasting the link like for the oregonstate.edu, we're just going to browse for this image, and it's College Infographic right there. So go ahead and click open, hit the space bar, and then target blank again so that there's no question as to whether or not that opens up in a separate tab or whatever. Usually, generally speaking, when you do click on image, it does automatically open it in a separate tab, but we're not going to leave anything to chance. So right caret there, so that closes that out. And my cursor is in between the opening A tag and the closing A tag. It's exactly where I want it to be. So here I'm going to type in a left caret again, and then type in image, img, src for source, enter return, and we're going to link up, basically display that same infographic, same exact link, and then spacebar, so then we can type in our alt key for this, and so this is OSU info graphic. And then make sure you move your cursor at the end of that quotation mark, / right caret. So with images do not have a closing tag. They are like what I call a self-contained closing tag or self-contained tag. So that's why you see at the end of that you have that / and then the right caret. If you think about it, it makes total sense because everything about that tag, all of the data is contained within the tag itself, not in between an opening and closing tag. So that's why you see that closing tag in the end before it. So I think that'll do it for the HTML part of things. I don't think we have anything in here that's new in terms of styling that we need to make our page look good. So let's just make sure that we test it out and see if it works. So there you go. There's our text. There's our image. There's our infographic. Let's make sure it looks good in a high res. So you'll notice that our infographic spans that entire screen. And I was debating on whether or not should we resize this image so it's a little bit smaller on the screen. And as I thought about it, I thought, let's just keep it full size, because when you look at it, it looks pretty good. If you want to resize it, if you think it's too large, then there are a couple of different ways that you could do it. You could apply a unique class. You could create a unique class for this image and just resize it. So, for instance, if I tab over to Dreamweaver and then click over into my style sheet and locate a convenient place for this, I probably want to put this in the main content area if I'm creating a unique class for that, and go to the desktop media query section and locate not the very last closing curly brace. You don't want to put it after that. You want to locate the last class you created, which would be that H5 for us, and hit the enter return key and give it like a unique name. So say something like infographic. You might even want to put like College Infographic if you have another infographic somewhere else. You could always just leave it as infographic, and open up a curly brace. And then here, all you would do is just give it a new width. So I would do this as a percentage. So width-wise, so you might say, I don't want that to be so large. I want it to be 75% of its size. So with height, you want to just go ahead and set that to auto. So it, it'll automatically resize height anyway, but it's just a precaution. So, oops, we needed to spell college right. There we go. Put an E in there. Now we need to add that class into our image container. So let's tab over to our DOM, over to our HTML. And what we're going to do is we're going to end up adding this class back into this image container. And it's going to end up basically saying we want this image container to be 100%, and then we want it to be 75%. So we're going to hit the space bar right after image CNT, and our code hint isn't coming up for that college infographic. So I'm just going to have to type it in manually, make sure I spell everything correctly so that it doesn't, so that it actually works. And then let's go ahead and tab back over and see if that put it in. So there you go. So it reduced it down to like 75% in the desktop view. And we only want to do that in the desktop view. We don't want to see that get applied to our mobile view. We want that to be 100% the width of that, because that looks really good in that screen. So if you like it this way, if you like to see it kind of centered in that way, that's how you would make that adjustment. You can also, instead of creating this as a class, or like we did in the style sheet, and adding this class to the image container, you could do something similar like we did up here to our logo by adding a style width of like a certain dimension to that actual image. So we could go that route instead of creating a unique class and applying that class that way as well. I'm going to go ahead and leave it without that class. So I'm going to go back into my style sheet and delete out that unique class that I created called College Infographic, because I actually like it with that large size. So it really kind of just fills out that page nicely. You are welcome to decide how you want it to display, because it's your portfolio, and you get some answers. You get some say in this, how it's going to look. So in the next tutorial, we're going to look at that scholarship and grant section, and then following that, we will do the student loan section.